49 days, 3 tears to live again. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our cinematic stories. It is quick, it is free, and it truly helps us continue bringing you more emotional tales like this one. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much, and now, let us return to our main character. The sun was gentle that morning, the kind of warmth that makes you forget how fragile life really is. Shin Ji-hyun sat behind the wheel of her white sedan, humming to the radio, her engagement ring catching little bursts of light. 25, beautiful, adored. She had everything she was taught to want: money, comfort, and a wedding only weeks away. Her friends said she was the kind of girl who never had to worry about anything. At a red light, she checked her phone. Dozens of congratulatory messages filled her screen. She smiled, typed a quick reply, and when the light turned green, she pressed the gas pedal. She never saw the truck speeding from the opposite lane. The impact was deafening. Metal screamed against metal. The world folded into white. When Ji-hyun opened her eyes, everything was still. She stood in the middle of the road, untouched, yet her car was crushed a few feet away. Inside, she saw herself unmoving, blood trickling down her cheek. Panic rose, but no sound came from her throat. People ran toward the wreck, shouting for help, but no one looked at her. Then, from behind, a voice, calm, detached. "You are not supposed to be here." She turned. A man in a pale suit stood beside her. His expression was unreadable, almost serene. "Who are you?" she whispered. "I am the scheduler," he said, glancing at the wreck. "You are not dead. Not yet. But your time is slipping away." Her hands trembled. "Please, I need to go back. My parents, my fiancé, they will be terrified." He studied her with quiet pity. "There is a way. You have 49 days to find 3 tears shed in pure love for you. Not from family, not from obligation. Real tears. And if I do, then you live again. And if I cannot, then you move on." Before she could speak again, the sound of sirens swelled, pulling her backward into a rush of white light. Ji-hyun gasped. She was standing in a hospital corridor, invisible among nurses rushing past. Through a glass window, she saw her parents crying at her bedside, her body connected to machines, pale and still. Her father gripped her hand. Her mother prayed aloud. But the scheduler's words echoed. "Family does not count." She stepped closer, trying to touch them, but her hand passed through the glass like smoke. The cold sank into her chest. Hours turned into days. She wandered through the hospital, watching the people she loved visit her with practiced sympathy. Her best friend In-jung wept softly, yet her eyes betrayed something else: guilt, maybe fear. Her fiancé Minho sat beside her body, holding her hand, whispering apologies she could not understand. Something was wrong. When the scheduler appeared again, she begged, "Let me go back. I need to know the truth." He nodded once. "Then you will need a body. Someone who has given up on living. Borrow it and make these 49 days count." The lights flickered. Darkness folded around her. When Ji-hyun opened her eyes again, she was lying in a small, dim apartment. A woman's reflection stared back from a cracked mirror, hollow eyes, tangled hair, a body thin from sleepless nights. "This is not me," Ji-hyun whispered. "No," the scheduler said quietly. "But she has stopped wanting to live, and you need to start again." Outside, the city hummed like nothing had happened. Inside, a borrowed heartbeat began to stir. 49 days. 3 tears. 1 chance to live again. When the morning light crept through the thin curtains, Shin Ji-hyun sat up slowly in the body that was not hers. The apartment around her was silent except for the ticking of an old clock. The air smelled faintly of instant coffee and dust. On the floor were empty pill bottles and a single photo frame turned face down. She reached for it, wiping the glass with trembling hands. A man smiled from the picture, his arm around the same woman whose reflection she now saw in the mirror. Song Yi-kyung. The name came back like a whisper from another life. Ji-hyun swallowed hard. "So this is the life I borrowed." She opened the small fridge, milk gone sour, 1 apple, and half a carton of eggs. The calendar on the wall had not been touched for months. Every day was the same shade of nothing. When she stepped outside, the city hit her like a wave of noise and motion. The streets were full of people, each one in a hurry, none of them seeing her. In the reflection of a shop window, she saw Yi-kyung's tired eyes staring back. They looked older than the face itself, like eyes that had seen too much pain. The scheduler's voice echoed faintly in her memory. You will only live when she sleeps. Do not change her fate. Use her body to complete yours. That night, when Yi Kyung's body collapsed into sleep again, Ji-hyun wandered into the city. She walked without direction, drawn by memory more than choice, until she stood before a familiar calf-warm light spilling from its windows, the smell of roasted coffee wrapping the air like a memory. Inside, laughter floated from tables, cups clinked, and behind the counter stood a man she knew instantly. Han Kang. Her chest tightened. He looked older, more serious than she remembered, his hands strong, his eyes quietly searching the crowd. Ji-hyun hesitated, afraid that speaking might break the fragile barrier between life and death. When he noticed her, his brow furrowed. Miss, are you all right? You look like you have not eaten in days. Ji-hyun forced a small smile. I just needed a moment to rest. Something in her voice made him pause. A faint flicker of recognition crossed his face. You remind me of someone, he said softly. She lowered her gaze. Someone you lost? He nodded. Yes. A girl who never got to say goodbye. For a second, the world blurred. Ji-hyun wanted to tell him it was her, that she was right there, standing in front of him. But the scheduler's warning burned in her mind. Do not reveal yourself. Let them feel you through truth, not confession. Han Kang handed her a cup of coffee. Here, on the house. The warmth seeped into her hands, anchoring her in the moment. It was the first kindness she had felt since the accident. Over the next few days, Ji-hyun returned to the cafe whenever Yi Kyung's body allowed her to wake. She cleaned tables, stacked chairs, learned to smile again. Han Kang never asked too many questions. He only said, "You work like someone trying to start over." She laughed lightly. Maybe I am. But each night, when she returned to Yi Kyung's apartment, the air grew heavier. She began to see flashes of Yi Kyung's memories, her laughter with the man in the photo, his sudden absence, her slow descent into silence. Ji-hyun understood now why the scheduler had chosen this woman. She had stopped believing life was worth living. One evening, Ji-hyun found Yi Kyung standing by the window in her dream, staring at the city lights below. Why are you here? Yi Kyung asked without turning around. Ji-hyun hesitated. To find 3 people who truly loved me. Lo. Yi Kyung's voice was flat. Then you are luckier than I am. When Ji-hyun woke, tears were already on her face. She looked around the small room again, now less like a stranger, and more like a silent companion. For the first time, she whispered, "Thank you for lending me your life." In that quiet gratitude, something subtle shifted inside her. The clock kept ticking, but the air felt warmer, lighter. Maybe, she thought, the first step to finding real tears was learning how to feel someone else's pain. Outside, dawn painted the city in soft gold. Han Kang opened the cafe door, looking out at the street as if expecting someone, and somewhere between the living and the lost, Ji-hyun smiled through borrowed eyes. 49 days had begun and her heart was finally learning how to live again. The following week unfolded like a slow awakening. Each night when Song Yi Kyung's body drifted into sleep, Shin Ji-hyun opened her eyes inside that same fragile shell and stepped into the city's heartbeat. Every breath she took in this borrowed life felt like walking a tightrope between 2 worlds, one fading, one waiting. Han Kang offered her a part-time job at his cafe after she kept showing up to help without asking for anything in return. You might as well get paid, he said with a teasing smile. You make the tables shine more than my staff ever could. Ji-hyun smiled back, grateful for the ordinary kindness. For someone once surrounded by luxury, it was humbling to realize that genuine care often came wrapped in simplicity: a cup of coffee, a clean towel, a smile that asked for nothing. But each evening, when the shift ended and the cafe lights dimmed, Han Kang would linger a moment longer, watching her. You remind me of her, he said one night. The way you stand by the window like you are waiting for something. Ji-hyun looked at him, her heart heavy. Maybe I am waiting for a sign. He laughed quietly. If life sends you one, make sure to listen. That sentence stayed with her long after he left. Inside Yi Kyung's apartment, the atmosphere had changed. Ji-hyun began to tidy up piece by piece, washing dishes, opening windows, replacing wilted flowers. It was not her home, but she wanted it to breathe again. The act of cleaning felt like caring, both for the woman whose life she borrowed and for the lost girl she used to be. Sometimes, she caught glimpses of Yi Kyung's memories in the reflection of the mirror. Laughter in a small park, the warmth of a man's hand, then darkness, a scream, and the silence that followed. Every time it happened, Ji-hyun's chest tightened. She wanted to reach through that pain, to tell Yi-kyung she was not alone. One night, while folding laundry, Ji-hyun found a note tucked inside a jacket pocket. The handwriting was elegant, written in deep blue ink. "I will wait for you where the river bends." Her fingers trembled. That simple sentence explained the weight in Yi-kyung's eyes, the love she had lost, the promise that was never fulfilled. The next day, Ji-hyun carried that sadness into work. Han Kang noticed immediately. "You look miles away today," he said. "I found something," she replied softly. A reminder that waiting can hurt more than loss. He nodded, leaning on the counter. "Waiting is only painful when you forget why you started." His words felt like sunlight after rain. Ji-hyun realized that her own waiting, the search for those 3 tears, was not about survival anymore. It was about rediscovering meaning. As days passed, Han Kang began to confide in her too. He spoke about the girl he had loved years ago, how she was kind but naive, how she believed everyone was as honest as she was. "She never learned that some smiles hide knives," he said quietly. Ji-hyun froze. He was talking about her Shin Ji-hyun, the person he thought was gone. Hearing his voice tremble for her made the air grow heavy. She wanted to cry out, to tell him she was here, that she still felt everything. But she stayed silent, letting his grief flow like a confession he never got to give. Later that night, back in Yi-kyung's room, Ji-hyun whispered to the sleeping woman, "He still remembers me." The clock on the wall ticked softly, a heartbeat counting down her 49 days. Ji-hyun could feel the sands slipping faster. By the 21st day, a faint glow appeared inside the small glass hourglass the scheduler had left behind. It pulsed once every few seconds, like the rhythm of a living heart. Ji-hyun touched it gently and felt warmth spread through her fingers. Somewhere, someone had cried for her, not out of pity, but love. Her first tear. She smiled through her own tears, whispering, "Thank you, Hong Kong." Outside, rain began to fall over the city, the kind that cleansed rather than destroyed. For the first time since the accident, Ji-hyun did not feel like a ghost trying to return to life. She felt like a soul learning what life truly meant. And somewhere deep inside the body she borrowed, Yi-kyung stirred in her sleep, her lips forming the faintest smile as if, through the veil between them, she could feel that light too. The rain did not stop for 3 days. It drummed against the calf windows, filled the gutters, and painted the city in silver melancholy. Inside, the warm hum of voices made the small shop feel like a shelter from the world. Han Kang brewed coffee behind the counter, his movements steady, precise, almost meditative. Shin Ji-hyun, still living through Song Ye-kyung's body, wiped down the last table, her sleeves rolled to her elbows. She watched him quietly, realizing how much peace his presence brought her. There was no glamour here, no luxury, only sincerity that wrapped around her like a blanket she never knew she needed. When Han Kang looked up, their eyes met. "You should rest. You have been working since morning." "I like it here," Ji-hyun replied, her voice soft but steady. "It feels safe." He smiled slightly. "Safe is good, but you should also feel alive." The words lingered, resonating somewhere deep within her. Alive. It was exactly what she was trying to remember how to be. Later that evening, when the last customer left, Han Kang brewed 2 cups of coffee and motioned for her to sit. The calf lights dimmed to a gentle amber glow. "Tell me something," he said, leaning forward. "What keeps you coming back every day? It cannot just be the paycheck." Ji-hyun hesitated. "Maybe I am trying to make up for lost time. Maybe I am learning what it means to care for others." Han Kang's expression softened. "That is a rare thing. Most people only realize what matters when it is too late." For a moment, silence filled the space between them, comfortable yet charged. Ji-hyun wanted to ask about the girl he lost, to hear him say her name, but she feared breaking the fragile rhythm of their connection. He looked down at his cup. "You know," he said quietly, "I used to think money could fix everything. I worked day and night, trying to build something meaningful. But when she was gone, none of it mattered. Not the business, not the success, just the things I never said." Ji-hyun's heart ached. She wanted to reach across the table, to tell him she heard him, that she forgave him for not seeing her sooner. Instead, she whispered, "Maybe she still hears you." Han Kang looked up, startled by her certainty. "You really believe that?" "Yes," Ji-hyun said, her voice trembling. "Some souls do not disappear. They just wait for us to speak again." He nodded slowly, a faint shimmer in his eyes. When Ji-hyun returned home that night, She could still feel his words echoing in her chest. She opened the window, letting the cool rain mist her face. Down below, the city lights shimmered like stars that had fallen too low. Inside her reflection, she saw both women herself and Yi-kyung sharing the same body, the same sorrow. The connection between them deepened. Ji-hyun began to leave notes around the apartment, gentle reminders taped to mirrors and walls. You are still here. Open the window tomorrow. Breathe. And little by little, Yi-kyung started to change. She began waking earlier, sitting up longer, eating more. Though she did not understand why, a quiet strength was returning to her. One morning, Ji-hyun caught Yi-kyung's eyes in the mirror. They were clearer than before, and for a fleeting second, Ji-hyun thought she saw herself smiling back. At the cafe, Han Kang noticed the change too. You seem lighter these days, he said. Whatever is healing, you do not lose it. She smiled, looking out at the clearing sky. I think someone is teaching me how to live again. That night, as she slept inside Yi-kyung's body, Ji-hyun dreamed of her real self, her pale form in the hospital bed, her parents whispering prayers, the faint beeping of machines. It was not fear she felt this time, but gratitude. She had learned something vital, that love was not proven by perfection, but by persistence, by showing up, by staying. When she awoke, the hourglass on her nightstand glowed faintly again. Another heartbeat of light. Another tear earned somewhere in the world. 2 tears now. She placed her hand over it, whispering, "Thank you." And outside, in the gentle quiet after the rain, Han Kang stood by the cafe window, sipping his coffee, unaware that the woman he missed was still there breathing, learning, and slowly finding her way back to him. By the 32nd day, Shin Ji-hyun had begun to feel the weight of borrowed time pressing against her ribs. Each sunrise felt sharper, each sunset shorter. The hourglass that marked her 49 days pulsed with a faint amber glow, reminding her that miracles were never meant to last forever. Still, she worked at the cafe as if life itself depended on it. In a way, it did. The laughter of customers, the scent of coffee, and Han Kang's quiet voice all stitched her existence together like a fragile quilt of hope. That afternoon, the cafe was unusually busy. Han Kang called orders, his sleeves rolled, his hair slightly damp from the steam of the machines. Ji-hyun caught herself watching him too long, memorizing the details, the way he smiled politely but never forced it, the way he looked at people as if he actually saw them. When the rush finally slowed, Han Kang leaned on the counter, breathing heavily. You know, he said, I used to hate this job. The noise, the repetition. But now it feels grounding. Ji-hyun smiled, setting down her tray. Maybe the right people make ordinary things feel sacred. He paused, surprised by the thought, then nodded. Maybe so. A moment of silence passed before he asked, Can I ask you something? Who are you really? Her hands froze. What do you mean? You say things, he replied, that sound like someone who has lived 2 lives. Sometimes, when you smile, it feels like you are remembering another world. Ji-hyun's chest tightened. She wanted to tell him everything, to admit that she was the girl who used to sit by his side years ago, the one he had never truly confessed to. But she remembered the scheduler's rule. Do not reveal your truth before your time. So she looked at him gently and said, Maybe I just lost something once, and now I am trying to find it again. Han Kang's expression softened. Then I hope you find it before it is too late. That night, Ji-hyun returned to Yi-kyung's apartment. She lit a candle on the windowsill, watching the flame flicker against the glass. Yi-kyung's shadow stirred faintly behind her eyes, no longer numb, no longer empty. Ji-hyun whispered, You saved me more than you know. Arminto. Somewhere deep inside, she felt an answer rise like a sigh. And you are saving me too. The next morning, the scheduler appeared, leaning casually against the doorframe. You are making progress, he said. 2 tears found. 1 more, and the bridge will open. Ji-hyun turned to him. But what happens to her Yi-kyung when I leave? That is not your choice to make, he replied. Each soul must decide if it wants to live again. She frowned. Then maybe I can help her decide. Kamawa. He smiled faintly. Careful. Compassion is powerful, but it does not change the rules. When he vanished, his words lingered like mist. Ji-hyun understood. Her final lesson would not be about receiving love, but about giving it without expecting anything in return. Over the next few days, she poured herself into helping those around her. She volunteered at the community center near the cafe, serving food, folding donated clothes, and listening to stories of strangers who had lost everything but still smiled. Each act of kindness made her feel lighter, more alive. One evening, as she helped an elderly woman carry groceries across the street, she heard someone behind her call her name, her real name. She turned. Han Kang stood under a streetlight, rain beginning to fall again. His voice trembled. "I do not know how, but every time you walk away, I feel like I am losing her all over again." Ji-hyun's breath caught. "Her?" He nodded. Shin Ji-hyun. Tears welled in her eyes. She wanted to run to him, to tell him he was right, but the world blurred around her. The scheduler's voice echoed in the wind. Not yet. Not until the third tear. Han Kang stepped closer, his expression breaking. "If you ever see her, tell her I was sorry for not saying goodbye." Yokonga. Then he turned and walked away, leaving her trembling under the rain. When she finally reached home, the hourglass glowed brighter than ever. A single drop of light fell inside it, flickering like a tear. Her third tear had begun to form, but from whose heart she could not yet tell. As thunder rolled across the city, Ji-hyun pressed her hand against the glass, whispering into the dark, "Please let me finish what I started." Kumgwan, the candle by the window went out, but the flame inside her refused to die. By the 39th day, the city had turned colder. The leaves along the calf street began to fade from gold to brown, and the air carried the smell of approaching winter. Shin Ji-hyun felt the same chill threading through her borrowed body. Every night she woke inside Song Ye-kyung's skin, she felt weaker, as if the line between life and death was beginning to blur again. The hourglass on her table had dimmed slightly, the sand nearly half gone. She stared at it while buttoning her coat, realizing she was running out of time to uncover the final truth, the secret she had sensed from the beginning. At the calf that morning, Han Kang seemed different. His usual calm had been replaced by quiet unease. He spoke less, his eyes tracing her face as if searching for an answer he was too afraid to ask. When she brought him his cup of coffee, he whispered, "You ever feel like the world is hiding something from you?" She nodded slowly. "Every day," he sighed, glancing at the rain streaking down the window. "I went to the hospital yesterday. A friend works there. He told me something strange. Shin Ji-hyun, she is still in a coma. But someone said they saw a girl who looks just like her working here." The cup in Ji-hyun's hands trembled. "And what did you say?" "I told them it was impossible," he said, holding her gaze. "But the truth is, I do not know what to believe anymore." She forced a smile. "Maybe you should believe what your heart tells you." He looked down. "That is the problem. My heart refuses to let go." When he turned away, she could barely breathe. Tears stung her eyes, but she wiped them quickly. The scheduler's warning echoed in her mind. The truth must reveal itself, not be forced. That night, Ji-hyun returned to Ye-kyung's apartment and found something she had never noticed before: a sealed box hidden behind old clothes in the closet. Inside were hospital documents, a wallet, and a photograph of a man whose face she recognized instantly. It was the same man in Ye-kyung's memories, the one who had promised to wait for her where the river bends. The paper beside it made her blood run cold, a police report describing his death, a suicide. She sank to the floor, clutching the photo. Now she understood. Ye-kyung had not just been sad, she had been living with a wound that never closed. She had lost the one person who had loved her completely. When Ji-hyun fell asleep that night, she dreamed vividly standing by a river, mist curling along the water. Ye-kyung appeared beside her, eyes hollow but gentle. "He left me," Ye-kyung said, voice trembling. "He said he could not bear to see me fade. I waited, but he never came back." "Tal?" Ji-hyun reached for her hand. "You were never supposed to follow him. You still have a life waiting to be lived." Ye-kyung shook her head. "I do not know how anymore." "Then let me show you," Ji-hyun said firmly. "Let me borrow your heart the way you lent me your body." When she awoke, tears were already on her cheeks. She looked at the hourglass. It flickered faintly, responding to the moment of compassion shared between two broken souls. The next day, Han Kang arrived at the calf earlier than usual. His eyes were red, as if he had not slept. He placed a folded newspaper on the counter. "Min-ho," he said quietly, naming Ji-hyun's former fiancé, "was arrested this morning. Fraud, embezzlement, and evidence of deliberate tampering with her car. It was not an accident." The words hit Ji-hyun like a blow. She gripped the edge of the counter, her breath shallow. Han Kang's jaw tightened. I kept asking why she had to suffer. Maybe now I know. The truth always comes, even when it hurts. Ji-hyun felt dizzy, the air thick with the gravity of revelation. The final pieces fit together: betrayal, guilt, and redemption converging into a single, painful clarity. She whispered, "Sometimes the truth does not heal, it shatters first, then heals what remains." Han Kang looked at her, something in his expression breaking open. "That sounds like something Ji-hyun would have said." "Mazunta." He reached out, his fingertips brushing hers. For a brief moment, warmth passed between them: recognition, forgiveness, and the fragile possibility of grace. When she returned home that night, the hourglass pulsed brightly once more. The third tear was near, not from sorrow, but from understanding. As the city lights faded, Ji-hyun whispered into the darkness, "I found it, the truth that was hiding behind love. Kumbe." And somewhere deep within the quiet apartment, Yi-kyung stirred, her heart beginning to beat a little stronger, as if both women, living and lost, were healing together through the same tear. By the 45th day, the city seemed to move faster while time for Shin Ji-hyun slowed to a fragile crawl. The hourglass on her nightstand had almost emptied, its last threads of light drifting like falling snow. Each breath she took inside Song Yi-kyung's body felt heavier, as if the air itself was reminding her that borrowed time always demands to be returned. She spent the morning cleaning the cafe long after closing hours, the smell of coffee and rain clinging to her hair. Han Kang was there too, stacking chairs in silence. The tension between them had changed. It was no longer curiosity, but something deeper, quieter, almost sacred. Finally, he broke the silence. "I went to see her again," he said. "Shin Ji-hyun, the doctors say there is no change." Ji-hyun froze. "And what did you feel?" He looked down, his voice rough. "I felt like I was standing next to her and talking to you at the same time. It sounds insane, I know." She set the rag aside. "Maybe it does not matter how you explain it. Maybe some souls are connected beyond reason." Han Kang looked up, and for a fleeting moment, Ji-hyun saw herself reflected in his eyes, not the borrowed face she wore, but the girl she truly was. Before she could speak again, the scheduler appeared at the doorway, invisible to everyone but her. His tone was gentle but final. "Your time is nearly done. 3 tears have been shed. The bridge will open soon." Her heart pounded. "Then I can go back?" He nodded. "For a little while. But remember, every miracle comes with an ending. Use it well." The next evening, Ji-hyun returned to Yi-kyung's apartment one last time. She found Yi-kyung awake, sitting by the window with the photo of her lost love resting in her hands. Her eyes were softer, no longer hollow. "I remember everything," Yi-kyung whispered. "Your voice in my dreams, the light in this room, the warmth I thought I had lost. You gave me back my will to live." Ji-hyun knelt beside her, tears forming. "And you gave me a life to finish. Thank you for letting me borrow it." Yi-kyung smiled faintly. "Then promise me you will not waste it." As dawn approached, Ji-hyun felt her strength fading. The edges of her vision shimmered like glass breaking underwater. She reached out, pressing Yi-kyung's hand over her heart. "Live. For both of us." When she closed her eyes, the world dissolved into light. She awoke in a hospital bed, surrounded by the steady beep of monitors. Her body, her real body, felt fragile but alive. Her mother wept beside her. Han Kang stood near the door, frozen between disbelief and relief. Their eyes met, and in that single glance he knew. He crossed the room, taking her trembling hand. "Welcome back," he whispered. Ji-hyun smiled weakly, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I told you some souls are connected beyond reason." For the first time since the accident, the air felt full of life again, imperfect, temporary, but beautifully real. And somewhere far away, inside a quiet apartment, Yi-kyung opened her eyes to the same sunrise, breathing deeply, alive. The world outside the hospital window was washed in pale morning light when Shin Ji-hyun finally sat up. Her body felt weak, as if every breath had to be borrowed from the silence she had left behind. The doctors called it a miracle, but she knew better: it was a gift, not a victory. She had been granted 6 days, 6 more chances to make peace with everything she once took for granted. Her parents stayed close, afraid to leave her side. Every time her mother reached out to touch her cheek, Ji-hyun smiled and whispered, "I am really here." Yet beneath that smile was an understanding deeper than words. Time was counting down again, only slower, gentler. When Han Kang visited, the room filled with a quiet that felt like home. He stood by her bed, hesitant, his eyes tracing her face as if afraid she might vanish again. "You look real," he said softly. I still do not understand how any of this is possible. She reached for his hand, her fingers trembling. You do not have to understand it. Just believe it happened for a reason. He sat down beside her, his voice unsteady. I kept thinking about what you said, that some souls are connected beyond reason. Maybe that is what kept you here. Kumbo? Ji-hyun's smile was faint but warm. Maybe that is what kept both of us alive. Over the next few days, she used her fragile energy to mend what was left broken. She asked to see In-jung, her former best friend, who came reluctantly, her face pale with guilt. Ji-hyun's tone was calm. I know everything now, the lies, the betrayal, all of it. In-jung's eyes filled with tears. Then why did you call me here? Because I forgive you, Ji-hyun said simply. Carrying anger would only waste what little time I have left. In-jung broke down, sobbing, and for the first time in years, their hands met not in friendship but in release. Later that evening, Han Kang wheeled Ji-hyun to the hospital garden. The sunset spread across the sky in strokes of gold and rose. She watched the light fading, her voice barely a whisper. It is beautiful, is it not? The world keeps moving, even when we stop. Han Kang nodded, his hand resting gently over hers. You taught me that beauty is not about what lasts. It is about what you feel before it disappears. She turned her head, meeting his eyes. Then feel this moment, Han Kang. Promise me you will keep living after I am gone. His jaw tightened. Do not talk like that. I have to, she said softly. The scheduler told me that every miracle has an ending. But endings are not meant to be feared. They are meant to be finished well. He lowered his head, pressing her hand to his chest. Then let me walk you to yours. The wind stirred the garden leaves. Ji-hyun closed her eyes, memorizing the warmth of his touch, the sound of birds returning to their nests, the world breathing around her. When the first star appeared above the horizon, she whispered, "Thank you for waiting, for believing, for seeing me even when I was gone." Han Kang did not answer. He only held her tighter, as if love itself could hold back time. And for that single, fleeting moment, it did. The sixth morning arrived quietly, without warning, without ceremony. The nurses said the sunrise looked softer than usual, as if even the sky understood it needed to be gentle. Shin Ji-hyun opened her eyes before anyone else, her body frail but her mind clear. The world outside her window shimmered in pale gold. It was the same world she had once taken for granted, now seen through the fragile lens of goodbye. Han Kang entered the room carrying white lilies. "You are awake early," he said, trying to sound cheerful. "I did not want to waste the day," she replied with a faint smile. "There are only so many left." He set the flowers on her table. "Then let us make this one count." They left the hospital just after sunrise. Han Kang pushed her wheelchair down the quiet streets, the city still half asleep. Every corner they passed held a memory: her favorite bakery, the park where she once laughed with friends, the bridge where her life had changed forever. Ji-hyun looked around as if she were collecting each sight like a final keepsake. When they reached the bridge, the wind was cool and steady. The water below moved lazily, reflecting the early light. Han Kang stopped beside the railing. "This is where it happened," he said quietly. Ji-hyun nodded. "Yes, this is where everything ended, and somehow where it began again." He knelt beside her. "If you could go back, would you change it?" She shook her head. "No, because then I would not have learned what love really means. I used to think it was about having someone stay forever. Now I know it is about being grateful for the time we are given." Han Kang's eyes glistened. "Then promise me something. When you cross that bridge again, wherever you go, remember that I loved you not for what you were, but for who you became." She reached for his hand, her fingers weak but steady. "I will remember, and I will wait for you, just not here. Somewhere quieter, where time no longer counts." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The sound of water and distant traffic filled the silence between heartbeats. Then Ji-hyun looked at the horizon and whispered, "It is time." "Odal." Han Kang stood, tears sliding down his face. "No, stay a little longer." She smiled, her eyes soft. "I already have. 49 days longer." Her breath grew slow, her face peaceful. The morning light wrapped around her like a gentle promise. When the wind passed over the bridge, carrying the faint scent of lilies, it felt like her final sigh had become part of the air. Han Kang remained there long after, the flowers in his hands trembling in the breeze. He finally placed one on the railing, whispering, "You did not die. You taught us how to live." Years later, every spring, he would return to that same spot. He would look at the river, now calm and full, and remember the girl who borrowed time to teach the living the meaning of love. And as the water shimmered under the morning sun, it almost felt as if she was still there, smiling, unseen, whispering through the wind,